I'm Daisy Soros, and I have a pleasure today to make an introduction of two gentlemen to you who will have a conversation on a book called The Constant Choice. So please give a big hand to Peter and Paul.
Thank you very much. Good evening. It's interesting to begin nearly on a biblical note with these extraordinarily strong words of good and evil. You cite an epigraph at the beginning of the book from Ecclesiastes. Very interesting epigraph, again taking us back to the Bible. But I would like to read another passage from Ecclesiastes, and the one you've cited. Good men and evil men, winners and losers, all of them go on to one place. All are dust, and all turn to dust again.
Well, it is true. It is true in the sense that we are renters of our space.
Renters?
Yes, that's what we are. We rent space in this earth, in this city, in this country for a period of time, and then we disappear. We're not sure what the speck of sand is all about. That's another conversation. But we do disappear from this earth. And the issue is that while we're here, at the end of the journey, somehow we need to account to ourselves, if not to a higher power, what is it that I've done? What's this space all about?
Is that why the Ecclesiastes starts the book as an epigraph?
Yes, it does. It does, because the quote that you're referring to, in fact, says the evildoers seem to be capable also of, at the end of the day, they are multiplying. And so there are people who need to speak up. There's a time to, as the quotation goes, to rejoice, to do all kinds of things, to listen, to hear, to learn. And there's a time to speak up.
And this is a time for you in your life at this moment to examine what this constant, I mean, a very interesting title of a book, The Constant Choice. I'd love you to unpack this a little bit. The notion, I mean, usually we have the feeling that when we've chosen, we've chosen. Here, what you're in some way implying is that the choice is never quite over or made, and we must be vigilant in a way that if we're not, we might end up looking into that mirror in a way that may not reflect a kind portrait of ourselves.
I think the journey and the recollection of evil in my life, which happened later in life, I think that things happened, and then you live your life, and then there comes a point in time when you become reflective about what does it all mean.
So you're talking about repression in some way?
I think there was, definitely there was repression. And I was helped by Barbara, my wife, to take us back to Romania, for example, and say, it's important for you to reconnect with the physical space and therefore with the emotional environment that has been so powerful, such a powerful force in your life.
This is not a trip you would have made easily without the help of Barbara.
No, I tried to resist it. It was not a question of, I didn't want to go. I shut the door. It was in the basement. It was like a bomb shelter, you know? It's well guarded, well protected. And it was there, down below. In the old days, I remember holding my dad's hand as we were walking down the street. And men in those days would not go out of the house without a fedora hat. I mean, that was just a garb, you know? And I remember seeing them tip their hats to grandfather, and women would bow to him. And that was, you got a sense of affection and respect for this man who built this little town, and he was governor of much of Transylvania, and he had helped enlarge Romania to a great, to become the country that it is today. And yet, some of the same people came in the middle of the night, one night, and arrested him. And
so this is where good and evil play out.
Good and evil. The capacity of these people who had loved him and respected him, took him away, put him in the city of Siget. By the way, it's the birthplace of Elie Wiesel, ironically. And he was, along with the 50 top leaders in Romania, they were feeding them 500 calories a day. This is the saga that Barbara and I learned with our grandkids and our son who visited that prison this past summer. And he was forced to clean the floors, and for whatever reasons, the guard decided that it was time to kick him in the face, which they did until he died. Shortly thereafter, it was our turn. Our turn, meaning my brother, myself, were arrested, my grandmother. We found a new home, which was a little room in somebody's house.
How old were you then?
At that time, I was about 9-ish. And and this is an interesting point. My memory is not crystal clear. I didn't go back and research. Much of this book is my memory, which is arguably perhaps the most important part, is what I recall from this experience.
This is why you say ish.
Ish. And, you know, we were left at, there was the hay, there was the bed, out the door about 6 o'clock in the morning, and to work. And I had the advantage of being a skinny little guy, and I could fit into the sewers. So that was my first job, cleaning sewers. And then I elevated to digging holes for telephone poles and electrical wires through the countryside and the like, and turning electrical transformers on and off in the middle of the night, which was a scary thing. They were very primitive things, and if you put your hand in the wrong thing in the middle of the night, you would be slammed to the ground 4 or 5 feet by the electric current. So we did a bit of that too. So that was going to be life, by the way. There was no visible way out. L'interdit. And that was going to be it.
And you were there with your brother?
With my brother, and my grandmother was forced to stay home. And she was a heroine because she helped reinforce the values of life, the love of our parents, that we were not just drifting alone. We weren't with them physically, but we were with them spiritually. And there would be a connection. But there wasn't any false illusion of it's all going to be okay. So my hope was built on the fact that I would work harder than anybody else. I'll try better than most men at their stuff, and sooner or later I would convince these people that I was worthy. Kind of beyond naive. But I was a little guy, and it gave me courage, it gave me hope, and the belief, religious belief, that good guys at the end are going to survive and thrive. This evil instinct that I saw in Romania, so blatant, so ugly, so monstrous, the kinds of thing that Elie Wiesel has experienced and all of that, in a way, changed garb, put on a nice suit, a shirt and tie, and it's still alive and well. There are people who say, well, the human condition advanced, look how many fewer wars we have, and that's the evidence that evil is dying. I say nonsense. We see different forms of it.
But I think also one of the reasons you seem to have felt the urgency to write this book at this time is because you're worried that these memories won't be kept alive, that the study of history has become lessened. I'm always surprised after 35 years of living in this country and maintaining this accent for some reason. I'm told I have a slight accent, and but
either we do or they do. I'm not convinced yet.
But you know, it's interesting. I'll bring my father up again because there was a piece written about my activities at the library, and the journalist said that I had an accent, and my father asked me just a few weeks ago, "But Paulie, do you have an accent?" I mean, so. But in effect, after all these years here, I am still surprised by this sentence, which I think is rather American, more American than it may be English. When you want to speak about something irrelevant in this country, you say that's history. And it always has surprised me how this is possible.
Yeah.
And in some way, this book is an attempt to tell some of these very painful details to maintain that flame.
Well, if one thinks a way to answer your question is to grasp the motivation of evil, and the components have to do with an enormous amount of self-centeredness, egocentricity, narcissism, greed, a sense of power, all of those things. And so there is no time to reflect about history or the meaning of life or what we're talking about here today.
Well, you have a line, you say the instinct of self-centeredness, which morphs into tribalism, can paralyze us. What better time to talk about it than now?
Yes. Let's take the Axela to DC and witness what is going on this very moment.
How do you mean?
What's happening in Congress right now? How many cliffs are we going to face in the next month or the past couple of months? What's ahead of us? You see, I think history to me is the ability to look and to learn. If you are in that self-centered mode, life is today. What's relevant is today. Yesterday is irrelevant. Yesterday is an anchor. It's a barrier to being able to do whatever it is that you want to do. God forbid that it raises questions in your mind and forces you to think and forces you to say, am I doing the right thing? So history is being really submerged in many ways. So you're right. I do think that it's important to continue to move forward with a sense of what Churchill, I think, or whomever said, that what happens if you reject learning about history.
At the very end of The Constant Choice, you write, we can, in italics, we can get better. Every step towards a good can, if it's chosen every day, produce an enduring goodness in our society. What I'm talking about is a sea change that happens voluntarily in little pockets of personal life, which then gains impetus as each one of us chooses to do the right thing again and again and again in small ways and large, until all these choices become a collective wave, a cultural shift. In some way, there's a tension between what I just read and what you said before.
But this is the possibility. This is the promised land for us. This is what we were told we've got to do. This is what the guys with the lanterns illuminating our path through life told us to do. And I'm talking about Christ or Buddha or Confucius or Moses or whomever you want to see, or Gandhi or Martin Luther King or Mandela. That's what they were trying to tell us. This is how you have to live your life, guys. Follow the path. And it happens in small ways. I have come to the belief that the small acts of goodness is where it's all about. Our future is not going to happen, in my opinion, this is an opinion, it's not going to happen by somebody at the top saying, a leader is going to come in and is going to say, okay guys, here's what we've got to do. It's not going to happen that way. We're not going to change that way. It's going to happen from bottoms up, from us as individuals. day in, day out, making those small little choices.
Yet the examples you choose of people who have been inspiring have been strong leaders.
Yes, they have. But even they, the strong leaders,
Especially they.
especially
right?
they
Approach things with ambivalence and hesitation and difficulty and...
yes,
and,
like because we are human. We're not
Right.
perfection machines here. Starting with moi at the top of the list.
You
I
know-
fail with regularity. I try. I try every morning to get up to do the right thing, and I fail pretty much often. But I do think about it, and I try to learn so that tomorrow morning and the morning after and the morning after, I have a better chance of doing something, even putting a smile on somebody's face that I just walked by when they needed just a little bit of lift in their lives. And that's what I'm talking about. Those are the kinds of choices that add up to an immense wave, powerful wave, and eventually can become built into the perfect storm.
I began with a quotation, to end with one, that your words inspire in me. There's a line by Saul Bellow I've always liked very much. He said, "One doesn't love because, but in spite." Thank you very much.
Got that, yeah.